Alrighty, the third book I've read this year is Arnold Schwarzenegger's Be Useful 7 Tools for Life. I read this actually within the last few weeks. We went to a trip, and my girlfriend wanted, at the time, she's now my fiance. My girlfriend at the time wanted to drive, and it was a long drive. So, for the most part, I was just kind of reading this in the passenger seat. I finished almost the entire book on the way there and the way back. And as somebody who doesn't like reading, that's something I'm proud of, which, as an American, is a good thing. Internationally, it's probably a sad thing. Anywho, this was a pretty good book. I actually liked it a lot. I was very excited to read it. I'm an Arnold Schwarzenegger fan. Hopefully, you can tell that I work out. If not, fuck you. But it was very nice to read about Arnold Schwarzenegger's life. As somebody who is a fan of him, you know, I know that he's the world's most famous bodybuilder. I know that he's an actor. I know that he moved to this country from Austria, not being able to originally speak the language. He had to really learn the language as he was going. Man worked his ass off and became successful for it. And he wrote his experience from it. Now, these are these books that you see all over the stores nowadays. It's May 19th, 2024. So you see one for Elon Musk. You see one for all these things. It's the same Photoshop. I don't know if there's a ghostwriter writing for them or not, because there's a lot of books with the same format for other famous people. But I kind of ignored that. This is an Arnold Schwarzenegger book. If I see an Arnold Schwarzenegger book, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to read it. I have his encyclopedia for modern bodybuilding, or whatever it's called. Pretty nice book to read. Objectively speaking, the book is okay. It is not something that is going to blow your mind or out of the water. There aren't really too many things that he talks about that you probably haven't heard on the internet somewhere, that you haven't heard as somebody's advice, that you haven't really heard as, you know, some sort of like general wisdom or life lesson that you haven't already learned. But if you're interested in Arnold Schwarzenegger and his perspective in life, it is fascinating. I like that, you know, he talks a lot about his career as governor of California. I like that he talks about being a public servant, about the issues that he faced as a public servant, what he learned from it. That was kind of fascinating. Somebody who isn't really a political person, but was a politician, talking about their experience was kind of nice. And there are just some lessons in there that I feel like it's not new, but it's nice to hear, right? It's nice to hear, and it's a good reminder to hear certain things. Like, my favorite one was when he said, if there's a problem that you are either not capable of fixing or unwilling to fix, then you don't have a right to complain about it. Kind of like it. He was talking about during the coronavirus, how the governor at the time, because he wasn't governor, was kind of inept to providing masks to people, and he basically said, like, does this guy not understand how to get to a manufacturer and just order 1 million masks? And then he was complaining, and he reminded himself, like, hey, stop complaining. Like, you have the ability to fix this. You can call the manufacturer. You can order 1 million masks for the people of California. And it was just kind of nice to hear. Like, it's like, even though like the coronavirus is a controversial subject, right? It's nice to hear somebody say something like that. Like, hey, if you can't fix it or you're not going to do anything to fix it, don't fucking complain about it. Some people just need to hear that, right? Some people need to be told, like, hey, you need to work your ass off. One thing he says that I don't like is you need to sleep faster. I think sleep is very important. I think that society needs to organize itself in such a way that sleep is more realistic. However, he is not wrong. And, you know, work towards whatever goal you're trying to have and try to be the best at what you can be. When he talks about his movie roles, he was talking about when he was in Terminator and how he caused his knuckles to bleed while practicing that little cool shotgun trick that he did in Terminator 2. He said, my knuckles were bleeding by the time I was done practicing, or something like that. Or he would practice so much that his knuckles would start to bleed. and it was just for like 2 minutes of video footage, right? He's a very fascinating man. He has a lot of accomplishments, and he's a lot smarter than people give him credit for. It's nice to hear from the world famous bodybuilder, like, what it was like to struggle before you became famous. It's nice to hear what it's like to move to a country where you don't speak their language and just work until you have something with your life. It's nice to hear, somebody who took a risk and actually succeeded. He didn't move here and have a rich family member. He didn't move here and have a clear path. It's nice to hear somebody saying, hey, like, have an idea of what you want in life and then work towards that. If you don't have an idea of what you want in life, you're going to be unhappy. And that's something that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about. Like, people talk about working hard. People talk about hustling. People talk about being a high-value male. People talk about, working out to be a dangerous person because you got to be dangerous. People talk about, being the alpha. If you're a guy, right, these are the things that you hear. But what he says is pretty refreshing as a young male who lives in America in the 2020s. He says, have an idea of what you want in life. Have a picture. And he goes, you can do one of two things. You can either have a small picture and expand it, or you can do what I did. And when I say I mean him. You can do what he did and have a big picture, but it's blurry, and you kind of just focus the picture as time goes on so you can more clearly see. He claims to have always kind of known what he wanted. He always knew he wanted to be famous. He always knew he wanted to have his name known. He always knew he wanted to be big. He just didn't know how. And so as his life went on, he found the opportunities and he worked towards it. And that's nice to hear, right? It's better than the bullshit stories that you hear nowadays. It's better than, some of the things that you read nowadays where people are just trying to convince you that they have a hard life. It's better than the bullshit fucking advice that people give you nowadays, where it's like, you gotta sleep for blah blah blah, and you gotta fast, and you gotta do this, and you gotta be you gotta follow this millionaire's daily routine if you want to be a millionaire. No, he just says, hey, work your fucking ass off. Understand what you need to do. Understand how your work is going to actually produce what you're wanting, and figure your shit out. But he says it in a way that's very positive, in a way that's so positive, I feel incapable of actually describing it. It's not a book that I think everybody should read. But if you're curious, read it, right? Reading is I think, is a lost art form. I think that I've kind of avoided it a lot in my adult lifetime, and now that I'm approaching my 30s, I'm appreciating it more. There are a lot of things that I wish I read when I was younger, and I wish I took to heart more when I was younger. And this is one of those books, right? I wish I had this when I was 20 years old. And I don't know if it would have made my life easier, but I think it had some things that I needed to hear. But that's my review. Whiskey and root beer. Because I don't know how to end a conversation. Have a good day.